I'm Rowan Taylor, 30 years old, and the last thing I expected to wake up to before my sister's wedding was the feeling of cold air on my scalp. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but the pile of golden strands scattered like confetti on my bedroom floor told me otherwise. My hand flew to my head and met uneven tufts of what used to be my hair. My long, carefully maintained blonde hair, butchered overnight. Standing in the doorway, holding the scissors like a relic of justice, was my mother. Her eyes gleamed with a kind of calm I'd only seen once before, when she decided my childhood piano lessons were a waste of time and money and sold the instrument while I was at school. No remorse, no guilt, just resolution. "Ellie's wedding is tomorrow," she said flatly. "You know she deserves the attention." And just like that, the last thread holding me to this family snapped. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how a woman could mutilate her daughter in her sleep, you have to understand the ecosystem I was raised in. I grew up in Cedar Hollow, Ohio, a place where appearances mattered more than authenticity, and the Taylors were something of a small-town legend. My dad, Victor, was a well-groomed insurance executive with a penchant for tailored suits and hypocritical advice. My mom, Elaine, ran the most successful wedding boutique in 3 counties. She built her life and her identity around orchestrating other people's perfect days. Then there was my younger sister, Ellie, the crown jewel, the chosen one. While I was the quiet achiever with straight A's and no time for makeup tutorials, Ellie was the one they showed off at brunch. Pageants, recitals, Instagram campaigns curated by Mom herself. Blonde, bubbly, and brilliant. If by brilliant, you mean loud and moderately clever. From early on, my role was made painfully clear. Be smart, stay useful, and above all, don't overshadow Ellie. At school, I was the tutor to her entourage. At home, the in-house graphic designer for every party she threw. When she got engaged to Zach, some smooth-talking guy from a banking family, our parents practically started planning the wedding before she said yes. They even joked, "Rowan, you should do the invitations. Just think of it as your wedding too," but without the man. I smiled. I always smiled. It was the only thing that kept the peace. But something shifted when Ellie announced I'd be her maid of honor. It wasn't a request, it was an expectation. She made it sound like a gift, as if I should be grateful to stand next to her in a dusty pink dress that looked like it was sewn from outdated curtains. I played along. I went to the tastings. I helped her rehearse her vows when she asked. I even spent hours designing a monogram logo for their wedding stationery. The night we finalized it, she said, "You really are good at making other people's lives look better." That stung more than I let on, but I stayed silent. I had a good job, friends who loved me, and a quiet life in the city 3 hours away. My peace didn't require their approval, or so I thought. The week of the wedding, I stayed at my parents' house. Tradition, my mom insisted. Besides, it'll be good for Ellie. She gets anxious without you. Anxious. That was code for jealous. Always had been. On Thursday, we had the rehearsal dinner. I wore a navy blue jumpsuit, simple makeup, and a French braid. Nothing flashy. That didn't stop Zach's brother Caleb, the best man, from striking up a long, charming conversation with me at dinner. We talked books, bad reality shows, and our mutual dislike for banana-flavored candy. It was harmless, but apparently not invisible. I noticed the glance Ellie shot me from across the table. The same glance she used to give me in high school when a guy talked to me before her. I brushed it off. That was my mistake. That night, Ellie knocked on my door with a cup of chamomile tea. "I know I've been stressed," she whispered. "Thanks for everything you've done." She even hugged me. It was the first time in years she'd shown actual warmth. I went to bed thinking maybe we were finally becoming real sisters again. Maybe after her wedding we could rebuild, laugh again, be family. That night they cut my hair while I slept. I woke up to cold air on my neck and a mirror that reflected someone I didn't recognize. My thick blonde hair, gone. My scalp stung where the scissors had gone too close. It wasn't a haircut. It was butchery, a warning, a punishment. My mom didn't flinch. My dad, standing behind her, looked at me like a disobedient employee who'd been put in her place. "You'll wear a headband," he said. "Or maybe a fascinator. Nobody needs to see you moping." I ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and collapsed on the tile floor. I stayed there for hours, staring at my reflection and wondering how this had become my life. I wasn't sobbing, I was calculating. This wasn't a bad haircut. This was psychological warfare. And I was done playing the dutiful daughter. Ellie came by later, pretending to be shocked. "Oh my God, what happened to your hair?" she asked with a tight smile. "You tell me," I replied. She didn't deny it. She just said, "Look, it's my wedding. This isn't about you." That's when I knew. She hadn't held the scissors, but she'd handed them over. That was the last moment they saw the old me, the girl who kept quiet, the woman who smiled through humiliation. She was gone, and the one who replaced her? She was done being polite. Morning arrived with the sound of my mother's too cheerful voice knocking on my bedroom door like she hadn't violated every line of decency 12 hours earlier. "Rise and shine, Rowan. Big day ahead." I didn't answer. I was sitting on the floor back against the closet holding a pair of scissors I had taken from the bathroom drawer. No, not to do more damage, but to make a point. At exactly 7 a.m., the hairstylist arrived. Her name was Marina, a local legend in the bridal circuit. The moment she saw my head, she blanched. "Oh my God, what happened?" Her voice shook. She got nervous and cut it herself. My mom chimed in before I could speak. "Girls and their nerves, right?" I looked Marina dead in the eye and said, "That's not what happened, but you don't have to fix it. Just do what you can." She paused, visibly uncomfortable, then set to work trying to salvage something out of the massacre. In 45 minutes, she managed to carve out an asymmetrical pixie cut. It looked defiant, sharp, and nothing like the polished daughter my mother tried to parade around. "I'm sorry," Marina whispered when we were alone for a moment. "You didn't deserve this." That made two of us. My dress was hanging in the guest room. It was at least one size too big. A deliberate sabotage Ellie had pulled during the fittings, claiming I'd probably gain a few pounds over the holidays. I cinched it with a belt hidden under the fabric and opted for flat shoes. My mother vetoed any makeup beyond concealer and a hint of blush. "Ellie needs to shine," she reminded me. "Of course she does." By the time we reached the venue, the roles had been rehearsed like a Broadway play. Ellie was the star. Everyone else was a prop. The venue was beautiful, an old vineyard outside town, decorated with fairy lights and overpriced hydrangeas. Guests filtered in with polite greetings and side eyes directed at my new look. I caught sight of Caleb again. He did a double take. "Rowan?" he said gently. "What happened?" I gave him a bitter smile. Let's just say wedding prep got a little aggressive. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't push. Photos came next. I was placed in the back row, partially obscured by a decorative trellis. Every time the photographer asked for a new arrangement, Ellie found a way to shuffle me further from the spotlight. And I let her, for now. At the ceremony, I walked down the aisle with mechanical grace, my bouquet trembling just slightly in my hands. I locked eyes with Marina, who'd stayed to help with touch-ups. She gave me the subtlest nod of solidarity. Then Ellie made her entrance. She looked like a Pinterest bride come to life. Lace bodice, cathedral veil, smug aura. And when she caught my eye, her smirk widened. She thought she'd won, and maybe once upon a time she would've. But that Rowan was gone. The reception was held in a massive tent draped in soft lighting and louder egos. My father gave a speech that was equal parts praise for Ellie and passive aggression directed at me. He ended with, Some daughters bring pride, others bring drama. Today, we celebrate the one who brings both beauty and balance to this family. The applause that followed made me nauseous. I slipped away for a moment of quiet and found Caleb near the dessert table. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Define okay," I replied. He handed me a glass of champagne. "You're the only real one here." Something in his voice grounded me, and that's when it clicked. They wanted me quiet, invisible, but they had no idea I'd spent my life building networks, skills, and allies in places they never looked. I worked in brand strategy. My job was reputational damage and recovery. I had resources, I had patience, and I had nothing left to lose. That night, while everyone danced and pretended this was a fairy tale, I activated the plan. It started small. I took the venue's Wi-Fi password and connected to their guest server. From there, I accessed the shared cloud drive our family had been using to upload wedding content. Thanks to Ellie's poor password habits, Ellie 2024, I got in without a hitch. I copied every file, every behind-the-scenes video, every photo, especially the unflattering ones of Ellie from dress rehearsals. Then, using a burner email and a scheduling tool, I queued up a series of auto posts to her Instagram and Facebook for the next 5 days. The captions? Oh, subtle masterpieces. "Does this veil make my shoulders look big?" Asking for a friend. Caught mid-yawn, but still better than Rowan's haircut. Each one seemed like Ellie had posted it herself. I returned to the dance floor like nothing had happened. I toasted her happiness. I smiled when guests congratulated her. I even hugged my mother and thanked her for the wonderful hospitality. The night ended with a sparkler send-off. Ellie and Zach drove off in a vintage convertible as my mother wiped away tears of joy, and I waved them goodbye with the same hand that had just cued her digital downfall. Back in my hotel room, I opened a private browser window and began Phase 2. I wasn't interested in revenge, that looked petty. I wanted poetic justice. My family believed Ellie was the golden daughter, the one with poise, control, and social finesse. So I set out to gently unravel that lie. The following day, one of Ellie's posts went live. It featured her screaming at a bridesmaid during a cake tasting, captioned, "When people try to tell you red velvet is just dyed chocolate cake." Within an hour, her friends were commenting, "Ellie, you okay? Did you mean to post this?" She deleted it, but I had queued 3 more. I also scheduled anonymous tips to her workplace's HR department, flagging that she'd used her corporate card for personal wedding-related expenses. All true, all traceable. I'd seen the receipts she'd left lying around when I helped with her registry. It wasn't about destroying her life, just making it uncomfortable, as she had done to me for years. But the true masterstroke, that was yet to come. By Monday morning, the first post had already made the rounds. It was subtle enough to create confusion, but inflammatory enough to trigger whispers. Weddings are basically just expensive therapy sessions in white. Ellie's Instagram story lit up with DMs. "LOL girl, you okay?" Not the meltdown honeymoon vibes. Did Zach approve that caption? She deleted it within 30 minutes, but the damage was done. The cracks in her perfectly curated image were starting to show. She texted me later that day, "Ellie, did you hack my account?" Me. "What?" Ellie. "I know it was you. This is exactly your kind of passive-aggressive BS." Me. "No idea what you're talking about. I've been busy recovering from my emotional trauma." Ellie. "Cut the crap, Rowan. You're not the victim here." I didn't reply. The next post was already queued, this time a blurry video from the rehearsal dinner where Ellie had screamed at a waiter for bringing the wrong sparkling water. The caption, "Bridezilla? I prefer Queen of Standards." Meanwhile, Caleb had been checking in with me regularly. I wasn't sure if it was concern or curiosity or something else, but I welcomed the company. He was the only one who had seen me during the reception and sensed that something deeper was stirring. "I don't know what happened exactly," he said on a call, but I've been to enough corporate takeovers to know when a coup is brewing. Let's just say, I replied, they should have left the sleeping lion alone. While Ellie's social media started wobbling like a drunk bridesmaid on stilettos, my next move was more surgical. I sent an anonymous email to Zach's law firm. Nothing slanderous, just a polite tip. Hi. I recently attended a wedding where the groom, a junior associate at your firm, made multiple jokes about billing clients during his honeymoon. You may want to double-check expense policies for out-of-office hours. Just a heads up. It wasn't a lie. Zach had made those jokes loud and proud during the bachelor party live stream. They laughed then. They wouldn't be laughing now. Later that week, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Zach's firm had placed his honeymoon billing under internal review. Just enough to make the newlyweds sweat. Nothing career-ending. Yet. But the most satisfying turn of events came when my mother called me. Her voice was sharp and brittle. Rowan. Have you been spreading rumors about the wedding? Someone told Aunt Melanie you had a breakdown and chopped off your hair out of jealousy. I let a silence hang between us like a guillotine. I didn't start that rumor, I said sweetly. But it's interesting that people assumed it without proof. Maybe ask yourself why that is. She sputtered, but I hung up before she could pivot. The truth? Marina, the hairstylist, had already told several clients what really happened. Word was spreading, slowly, sure. But like all good fires, it just needed time and air. At the office, my coworkers tiptoed around the topic. They'd seen the photos. They knew something had gone down. But I was calm, composed, and sharper than ever. A pixie cut had replaced my flowing hair, but I made it work. I even landed a high-profile client pitch that week. Funny how clarity sharpens everything. That Friday, I received a call from Aunt Judith. I heard what they did to you, she said, her voice low like she was confessing a sin. I'm so sorry. If I had known, I would have said something. You did know, Judith, I replied, without venom but without mercy. You heard them mocking me during the engagement dinner. You laughed. She went quiet. Don't apologize to make yourself feel better, I added. Just don't be part of it again. I ended the call. This was new for me. Drawing boundaries, denying people the comfort of performative guilt, but it felt right. Meanwhile, Ellie's Instagram followers were starting to drop, slowly at first, then by the dozens. Every time she posted a cute honeymoon photo, another awkward scheduled caption would auto-publish, "Not even Bali can fix bad lighting and poor decisions." She tried to regain control, but I'd anticipated that. Her recovery attempts only made the posts seem more authentic, as if she were unraveling in real time. One of the posts accidentally revealed the hotel they were staying at. A few online trolls began mocking her posts with the hashtag #HowBrideBreakdownBali. That weekend, she called me. I let it ring. She followed up with a text. Ellie, this isn't funny anymore. Stop. You've made your point. Me. Oh no, Ellie. I'm just getting started, because the truth is, they didn't just cut my hair. They stripped me of dignity. They turned me into a punchline to elevate someone else's fantasy. They tried to humiliate me into submission. And now, I was repurposing every piece of that pain into a plan. You know the saying, what's done in the dark eventually comes to light. I wasn't just waiting for that moment, I was engineering it. Ellie and Zach's honeymoon wrapped up with a tangle of complaints. A skin rash Ellie couldn't explain, courtesy of the sample lotion I'd generously added to her gift basket, missed spa appointments due to time zone errors, those confirmation emails just happened to be edited, and a resort that moved them to a partial ocean view suite after someone, me, accidentally swapped their room upgrade code. But I didn't want petty chaos. I wanted reckoning. So I turned my attention to a different stage, reputation. I compiled a digital album titled Behind the Vows, What You Didn't See at the Taylor Wedding. It was a collection of subtle truths, audio clips of my mother downplaying my emotions. She's always been dramatic. A video of my father saying, "Rowan has a martyr complex. Don't fall for it." And the pièce de résistance, Ellie, in full makeup, telling a bridesmaid, "If Rowan gets more compliments than me, I swear I'll flip." No heavy editing, no dramatic music. Just truth, curated like a gallery. I uploaded it anonymously to a private link and sent it to 3 people. A blogger friend who specializes in wedding culture commentary, an HR manager at Ellie's company, and Caleb called within an hour. "Rowan, Jesus, this is exactly what it looks like." There was a pause. "I can't believe they do that to you." "You don't have to believe. You heard it." He asked to meet for coffee. I said yes, and not just because he was the only decent human left in their family tree. At the cafe, he sat across from me, quiet for a long time. Then softly, "I watched the whole thing twice. You're not crazy. They are." I smiled, small and tired. "Thanks, but I'm not looking for validation. I'm building my own peace." He nodded, then handed me something. A small flash drive. "If you ever want to go nuclear, this has the rehearsal dinner recording, the full one. My mic was live the whole time. And, well, let's just say your parents were very comfortable talking trash." I took it, my fingers curling around it like it held freedom. Later that week, my mother emailed me. Subject, "Family comes first." "Rowan, enough is enough. You're causing stress and confusion. We understand you were upset, but continuing to sabotage your sister's reputation helps no one. Be the bigger person." I forwarded the email to her own best friend, who had just texted me privately asking, "Did she really cut your hair in your sleep?" Then I blocked her. Meanwhile, Ellie's HR team began quietly checking her company laptop for personal files. Turns out she'd stored several wedding spreadsheets, vendor invoices, venue contracts, personal images, all on company storage. I didn't even have to push that domino. They reached out to me after the anonymous tip. I simply confirmed, yes, she conducted wedding planning during work hours. There are receipts in that folder marked dress budget, final Vivan XLSX. Ellie texted the next day. "Ellie, you're ruining my life." Me. "No, I'm just taking back mine." 2 weeks post-wedding, a subtle wave began shifting through the family. Cousin Lauren, always the peacemaker, messaged me. "I just watched that clip. I'm sick. I thought you were being overdramatic. I was wrong. I'm so sorry." Others followed. Even Aunt Carol, queen of polite silence, sent me a voice note. "I had no idea. I thought your mom was just strict. This is cruelty. You didn't deserve any of that." The most unexpected message came from Natalie, Ellie's Maid of Honor. "Rowan, I left the wedding early because of the way your mom spoke to you during the photos. I was going to stay out of it, but your video? Brave. You're not alone. I wasn't looking for applause. But I wasn't about to deny the satisfaction either. The final nail in the coffin wasn't a viral post or public scandal. It came at my office during a team meeting when my boss said, 'Rowan, your campaign proposal is exceptional. That emotional angle cuts straight through the noise. You've clearly turned some fire into fuel.' And I realized I wasn't just getting revenge, I was becoming. My whole life I had shrunk myself to accommodate their fears, diminished myself so Ellie could shine without shadows. But after that wedding, I wasn't shrinking anymore. I was building something entirely new." 3 weeks after the wedding, I received an envelope. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was a single folded piece of cream-colored stationery. My mother's handwriting, meticulously curved like she was still pretending to be someone respectable. "Rowan, we hope by now you've calmed down. Your actions are damaging your own image more than anyone else's. Families fight, but they also forgive. Let this go. Let's move forward. For Ellie's sake, for ours. Love, Mom." I laughed out loud, not a bitter chuckle, A full, body-shaking laugh. It was the audacity for me. They spent 3 decades belittling me, then mutilated my body while I slept, and now they wanted peace because their image was fraying. I didn't respond. But I did book an appointment with a lawyer, not to sue, though I had more than enough grounds, but to remove their names as co-signers on everything. My apartment lease, the emergency contact at work, even the auto-pay utility bill my father had once insisted on handling as a favor. No more. I was reclaiming every inch of autonomy. Caleb and I kept talking. Not romantically, not yet, but real, raw conversations. About how his brother Zach was imploding under the HR probe. About how Caleb had always suspected the Taylor household wasn't what it pretended to be. He said something that stuck with me. You know, for years, Ellie and your mom always talked about you like a problem to solve. Like you were the unpredictable one. But you were the only one not wearing a mask. It made me pause. I had internalized their narrative for so long that I was the moody one, the jealous one, the one who couldn't let things go. But the truth was, I had let go for decades. I just stopped letting them hold the scissors. One evening, I walked into my building's lobby and saw a man waiting near the mailboxes. Victor, my father. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe smaller, like time and pride had both chipped away at the man who once towered over me with judgment in his eyes. I was hoping we could talk, he said. I stared at him. About what? I asked. About how you stood there while Mom violated your daughter's body? His jaw clenched. You're being dramatic. And just like that, I knew he hadn't come to apologize. He came to reset the narrative. I'm not 12 anymore, Dad, I said. You can't guilt me into submission. His expression faltered. You're making a mistake. Family doesn't abandon family. No, I said. But you did. Over and over. He turned to leave, muttering, ungrateful. I didn't stop him. Ungrateful. He was right. I was done being grateful for scraps. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. I drafted a final email, not to my family, but to my therapist. I wrote, I've done the thing you warned me about. I burned the bridge, I salted the ground, and I don't regret it. Is that normal? Her reply came the next morning. It's not about normal. It's about necessary. Some bridges are exits. Some fires clear space for growth. At work, I got promoted, creative director, a title they never imagined I'd earn. The woman with the pretty face and the artsy distractions was now leading multi-million-dollar campaigns. My office view overlooked the skyline they used to say I'd never reach. And yet, there I was. Hair grown into a confident, asymmetrical bob. Shoulders squared, spine straightened. I hadn't just survived their betrayal, I had rewritten my origin story. The real closure came not from confrontation, but from silence. I removed their photos from my shelves. I stopped checking Ellie's socials. I unsubscribed from the family email thread where baby photos and passive-aggressive reminders used to thrive. And for the first time in my life, I spent a Sunday morning without bracing for judgment. Just me, my coffee, a view of the world I built on my own. I thought of something Ellie once said when we were kids. You always think you're better than me. No, Ellie. I just always knew I could be better if I wasn't chained to your ceiling of smallness. 6 months after the wedding that lit my world on fire, I no longer thought of it as a tragedy. I thought of it as a detonation point. Because in the ashes of that betrayal, I built a new life. It didn't look like revenge. It looked like peace. Ellie's reputation took quiet hits. Her follower count dropped. Her brand collaborations dried up. And though no one ever pinned it on me, whispers clung to her like humidity. At work, HR never fired her, but she was moved to a lower-profile team. She posted about it as a strategic lateral shift, but we both knew what that meant. I heard from Caleb once more. This time, it wasn't a call or a text. It was a voice memo. I know you've probably moved on from all of this, But in case no one's told you lately, what they did was criminal. And what you did with it? That was art. If you ever want dinner, not to rehash it, but just to celebrate the fact that you're still standing, I'd love that. I saved the message. Maybe someday. But I wasn't in a rush to fill space anymore. My life didn't feel like a hole needing plaster. It felt like a room I'd just opened the windows in. I redecorated my apartment. Not just physically, though yes, I donated the dusty family heirlooms, the gilt-framed photos, the just-in-case emergency box my mother insisted I keep under the sink. No, I redecorated the space inside me. I hung up new mantras where self-doubt used to live. No is a complete sentence. It's not your job to be digestible. Silence is power when it's by choice. I also joined a trauma recovery group, not just for family issues, but for women like me. Women who were always the mirror for someone else's ego. Women who were blamed, tamed, and framed as the difficult one for having boundaries. There, I met a woman named Sam who'd escaped a similarly toxic dynamic with her mother. We got coffee every other Saturday and joked that therapy was our unofficial religion now. "You were raised in a house," she said once, "but you live in your own home now. That's progress." I didn't block my family. I just made myself unavailable. They texted sometimes, little messages wrapped in manipulation. "Dad's birthday is coming up. Would be nice if we could be civil. Ellie says she misses having a sister. You should really let this go." I never responded. Not because I was angry anymore, but because responding meant entering a room I'd finally walked out of. They had dimmed my light for years, hoping I'd stay manageable, but they never realized, once you learn to burn, you never return to flickering. One evening, as I stood brushing my now chin-length hair in the mirror, healthy, radiant, mine, I thought back to that morning I woke up with my hair scattered across the sheets. I remembered the first thing I'd whispered to myself in that mirror. Why? I no longer needed the answer. It didn't matter why they did it. It mattered what I did after. They tried to erase my identity to make room for someone else's spotlight. Instead, they gave me the clearest truth I'd ever seen. If you have to dim your fire to belong, you're not in a home. You're in a hostage situation. And I had chosen escape. Today, I work with brands that actually respect the ideas I bring. My team is small, brilliant, and full of people who uplift instead of compete. Last month, I gave a talk at a women's empowerment summit titled Silent Scissors and the Stories We Rewrite. It was the first time I'd told the full story publicly, without hiding behind euphemisms or pretending it was just a family misunderstanding. People wept, people cheered, and more than one person whispered after, "Thank you. That happened to me too. I've never told anyone." And that's when it clicked. My story was never about revenge. It was about liberation. If you're reading this and you've been the scapegoat, the black sheep, the forgotten daughter, the one they blamed and belittled, hear me now. You are not broken. You are not dramatic. You are not difficult. You are just done being their echo, and that is the beginning of your real life. Let them think you vanished. Let them whisper about your haircut, your silence, your distance. Because somewhere out here, beyond their reach, is the version of you they feared most. The one who learned to speak without permission. The one who doesn't need their love to love herself. The one who not only grew back stronger, but brighter. Story 2. She examined me from head to toe as if I were dirt on her shoe. Then, as she spoke to the crowded room, she clinked her wine glass. To the daughter who truly brought us joy. Please let me know in the comments where you are viewing this. My name is Rachel Monroe. Have you ever experienced unfamiliar treatment from members of your own family? My flight from Boston to San Diego took 14 hours. Just heart, no call, no warning. To be there for her 65th birthday, I had rearranged my work schedule, saved for months, and even skipped a promotion ceremony. In the backyard of the house, I assisted her in avoiding 2 foreclosures. I stood. After Dad passed away, I completely renovated the house for which I had the deed. Nevertheless, her smile vanished like a stone in cold water when she turned around and saw me. With venom so courteous it sliced, she blinked twice, cocked her head, and spoke. "You're still here, I see. The glass race, toast, and deck to the daughter who truly made us proud followed." Everyone chuckled. The champagne glistened. And Madison, my younger sister, who has only known a man for 6 months, is dripping in designer. Like a debutante, she blushed. I refrained from crying. I didn't cause any trouble. I simply stood in my plain blue dress, present in hand, not broken, but bruised heart. She was unaware of my arrival. She hadn't wanted me to come, but more than that, I was the reserved, sensible one, the person who filed taxes, handled emergencies, and paid bills. Madison, who once borrowed $5,000 from me for rent and used it to purchase a Pomeranian, was the social media sensation, the drama, and the dazzle. Even so, her name, not mine, was on the toast. I gave that slow, perilous smile. When you come to a profound realization, you smile. You're not only unloved, but also unwelcome. And her voice echoed once more as I turned to go inside. This time, louder. "Rachel, tomorrow, remember to bring the house deed. It must be signed by you before the bank closes." I stopped in front of the patio door, which I had put in myself. I said in a whisper, "You want the house? Then watch me set fire to your applause and build a stage on your pride." I sat at the kitchen island, which I had constructed when she was unable to pay contractors, the morning after her birthday, listening to her heels click upstairs while sipping black coffee. Good night had not been said by her. I left a gift on the table, but she hadn't even opened it. However, she had only sent me a single line of text. "Remember the deed. At noon, Madison is bringing the notary. Please don't." "No, thank you." That icy, entitled sentence, that is, as if I were a clerk tasked with realizing her fantasy. She didn't even glance at me as she came down. "Be sure to wear nice clothes." She flipped her hair and looked at her reflection in the microwave before saying, "You'll be in the pictures." I gazed at her. My hair was braided by the same woman before school. After 3 miscarriages, the woman once told me I was her miracle child. Where was she now? It's amusing. She only gave me a call when Madison had hit another car, or when bills were due, or when another foreclosure notice was sent by the bank. However, I was invisible when it came time to celebrate. Madison walked in like a reality TV star that morning. False humility. Actual diamonds. She purred, "Hey, sis. For tax purposes, according to Mom, we are transferring the house into my name. It's only a temporary situation." Slowly, I nodded. Therefore, the house that is currently in my name will be temporarily transferred to your name. Surprised, Madison blinked, then grinned. "Yes. Rach, you don't even reside here. It just makes sense." At that moment, my mother entered with a pageant coach's claps. "Let's not fight, girls. Go get the deed, Rachel, and be a sweetheart. The notary is en route." He gave me a cheek kiss. The substance was ice. I went upstairs, took out the folder containing the deed, opened my suitcase, and gazed at it. My name. Not Madison's, not hers. 3 times I had prevented her from losing this house. I had kept that roof over her head with my own money and credit. As if I didn't exist, they now wanted to write me out of it. As if I were merely a pen they took and neglected to give back. So I decided. One silent, thoughtful, and long-lasting decision. I grabbed the folder and put the deed in my tote bag before leaving through the front door. Not a word. No farewell. Not a word, since retaliation doesn't always require fireworks. Silence and an unspoken signature can sometimes be the first signs. I didn't go very far, only to Main Street's little diner. The one where, following parent-teacher conferences, my dad would take me out for milkshakes. I called the bank, ordered a black coffee that I hardly touched, and sat in a booth in the corner. The same one my mother had pleaded with me to co-sign on the refinance documents. I'm Rachel Monroe. "Hello. The pending transfer on a property deed must be stopped. One of the main owners is me. I complied with the man's request to double-check everything. Calmly, slowly, similar to a woman locking up a vault. Indeed. "No, I haven't signed anything," I told him. "Yes, I am refusing to give my consent." He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Miss Monroe, they've already submitted preliminary paperwork for transfer under your name." I grinned, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. "They submitted forged paperwork." Silence, then a cough. "I can't confirm that. But without your signature, the transfer can't legally proceed." "Good." I said, "Make sure it doesn't." Then I hung up. Outside, the clouds rolled in heavy, thick with summer storm energy. I took that as a sign. Not from God, from justice. Back at the house, my phone lit up like fireworks, missed calls, texts. Then Madison's name popped up with a message that simply read, "Where the hell is the deed?" I didn't respond. At exactly 12:16 p.m., my mother called. "No." "Hello?" "No, sweetheart, just, are you serious right now? Rachel? He just left. The notary is sitting here. You're making me look like a damn fool." I took a breath, felt every muscle in my jaw tightened. Then I said softly, "Oh, so now I exist." Silence. The kind that confirms he just landed a punch where it hurts most. "You're being vindictive," she spat. "This is why we don't trust you. You act like you're better than everyone." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was finally freeing. "No, Mom, I just stopped letting you treat me like a spare part." Then I hung up and turned off my phone because that day wasn't about her anymore. Or Madison, or the notary waiting with fake smiles and expensive pens. It was about reclaiming the years I spent being quiet, being dutiful, being invisible in the home I helped keep afloat. She wanted my signature. Instead, I gave her silence. And silence can echo louder than any toast at any party. That night, I checked into a quiet hotel by the coast. I didn't cry, didn't pace, didn't second guess. I ordered wine, sat on the balcony, and let the ocean remind me what peace sounded like. Who's strange. How calm I felt, like my soul had finally sat down after standing too long. By morning, I had over 30 missed calls, texts from Madison that grew more frantic, voice notes from my mother that started polite and ended vicious. "Rachel, please, I'm sorry. Okay. You're blowing this out of proportion. I need that date, sweetie." I told the bank it was already done. Don't make me beg. But it was already too late. Not because I was angry, but because I was done. I opened my email, attached a scanned copy of the original deed, and sent it to my lawyer. Subject line, "Do not release ownership. Full stop, then exceed the bank." Yes, for fun, I added my mother. That was when things spiraled. At exactly 11:42 a.m., the bank called the same banker from the day before. His voice was tight, uncomfortable. "Miss Monroe, your mother came in with someone claiming to be. You attempted to sign on your behalf." I froze. "Excuse me." "Yes, ma'am. He had a woman with her. Same last name. They presented a photocopy of your ID, the beat." Then I asked, "Did you process anything?" "No, we flagged it. The manager called me because he remembered our conversation. We've escalated this to legal." I closed my eyes, breathed in the ocean, and smiled. They had tried to forge my signature, to take the house I paid for and write me out of existence. But the thing about Ghost, we always return with unfinished business. I texted Madison just 5 words. "You impersonated me. Legal's involved?" She replied instantly. All caps. "You wouldn't dare. Mom's health can't handle this." I stared at the screen. The audacity was almost impressive. They tried to steal my future, and now they were using guilt as a weapon. I texted back, "Tell Mom to raise her glass again. This time to consequences." Then I blocked her. Because forgiveness isn't owed when betrayal is premeditated. And sometimes, daughter, stop dancing for the mothers who never once clapped. 3 days later, the letter arrived. A formal envelope, thick paper, gold-trimmed seal, the kind meant to intimidate. My mother was suing me for emotional distress. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. It wasn't about the house anymore. Who's about power? Control. She couldn't believe I had the audacity to say no and mean it. He forgot. I didn't just sign her medical forms anymore. I signed my own checks. I forwarded the letter to my lawyer, Marlene, who called within an hour. "Rachel," she said, "this is smoke. They have no case, but we can hit back hard. Let's do it," I said, as if she wanted war. She was about to meet the version of me she raised, the one who never flinched, never cried, where people could see. That afternoon, Marlene filed a cease and desist. We also subpoenaed the bank security footage. The moment Madison tried to sign in my place, by the next morning my mother's lawsuit was dropped. No apology, just silence, the kind that comes before a storm or after you've lost. But the most beautiful part, her mortgage application was denied. The bank called me to explain. Given the red flags surrounding the property's ownership and your official hold, we've rejected the financing request. I didn't gloat, didn't send a text, didn't post a thing. I just sat on my hotel bed, opened the same notebook where I used to scribble love poems as a girl, and I wrote one line: "You don't get to profit from the daughter you pretend doesn't exist." 2 hours later, my cousin Brittany sent me a video. It was from the same birthday dinner, the one I had ruined by walking in. My mother was red-faced, yelling into her phone in the driveway. "You don't understand. That house is supposed to be mine. She wouldn't even be anything without me." In the background, someone whispered, "That's not how you talk about your daughter." And still, she didn't flinch. Didn't even realize she was being recorded. She didn't know the whole town had started to see through her act. That every toast she made had a bitter aftertaste. Now you can pour champagne into a crystal glass, but poison still burns the throat. A week passed, then you. No calls, no messages, just a cold, consuming silence from the woman who once told me I was her biggest disappointment. Until one afternoon I got a knock at my hotel door. "Who is Brittany?" My cousin is puffy, lip trembling. She's unraveling. "Rachel." I let her in. She collapsed onto the armchair like her bones had given up. She's calling everyone, crying one second, cursing the next. "She told Grandma you were brainwashed." I said nothing. "She's trying to sell the house behind your back," Brittany added, voice hollow. "But nobody will buy it now. Your name's still on the title and the bank flagged her for fraud." I nodded, not out of joy, but because some falls have to hurt, you know, Brittany whispered. "She told me once she wished you'd just disappear quietly, like you were an embarrassment. Like all you ever did was get in the way." My chest tightened. Not from surprise, but from memory. I remember being 13, hiding in the laundry room, listening as she told my Aunt Rachel's too soft. She won't make it. She's nothing like Madison. But she was wrong. I wasn't soft. I was scarred. There's a difference. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and drove back to the house. My house? I didn't knock, just walked in with my keys. She was in the kitchen in her robe, hair tied up, face bare. When she saw me, she froze. "I told you," she snapped, voice shaking. "This is my home." I placed a manila envelope on the counter inside a formal eviction notice filed stamped final. She stared at it like it had teeth. "I gave you every chance," I said, voice steady. "You looked me in the eye and called me invisible. You brought Madison in to forge my name. You sued me, Mother." She reached for a chair, slumped down. "I made mistakes," she began. "No," I cut in. "You made choices." She opened her mouth, but I walked out because I wasn't there to relive pain. I was there to reclaim power. And as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized something. Forgiveness doesn't always come in hugs. Sometimes it comes in signatures. The house was mine again, not just on paper, not just in bank filings or title deeds. It felt mine, the ear clearer, the silence no longer hostile. I walked through each room barefoot, touching the walls like they were old friends I'd finally come home to. She was gone. My mother left without a word, the day the sheriff showed up to enforce the eviction. No tantrum, no dramatic last speech, just a bitter silence and the sound of wheels dragging two overstuffed suitcases out the door. "I should have felt relief," she said. "I felt hollow as the truth is. Revenge doesn't taste sweet when it's served to someone who is supposed to love you. But it was necessary." I poured myself a glass of red wine that night. I sat on the back porch and watched the lights of the city blink beneath the quiet sky. Then my phone rang. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me needed to hear what she'd say. I picked up a long pause, then her voice. "You're really going through with this?" "Yes," I said simply. Another pause. I heard traffic. Maybe she was in a car. Maybe just walking nowhere. "You think this makes you better than me?" she hissed. "No, it makes me free." She scoffed. "You ungrateful little..." I hung up because that's the thing about people like her. They don't want healing. They want control, dressed in an apology. The next morning, Madison emailed me a long, desperate message. She claimed she didn't know Mom would go that far, but she was just trying to help. Then came the real reason, she wrote. "I'm about to lose my condo. I wouldn't ask, but you always said family came first. Can you loan me $10,000? I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Marlene. Then I wrote myself a note. People will call you heartless for building boundaries, especially the ones who only loved you when you were bleeding for them. That night, I opened the drawer in the hallway, the one where Mom used to keep all the cards I sent her from overseas. I found every single one, unopened birthday cards, letters, postcards from Greece, Japan, London. She never read a word. I sat on the floor, holding the envelopes to my chest, and I whispered, "You're not invisible anymore." Because I didn't just reclaim the house. I reclaimed me. A month later, I listed the house for sale. Not out of spite, out of peace. It had served its purpose, not as shelter, but as a mirror. A place where I finally saw the truth, without filters, without hope clouding my judgment. I didn't need to live there anymore. I just needed to let it go. The listings sparked whispers all over town. People asked if I was moving back overseas, if I'd reconciled with my mother. If the rumors were true that she tried to steal from me, I answered no one, because some stories aren't theirs to hear. Then, on a warm Friday morning, I walked into the same bank that had once called me to question the deed. This time they stood when I walked in. Miss Hale, the branch manager, smiled. "We've completed the closeout on the house account. You'll receive the final wire within 24 hours. "Thank you," I said. "Come, Cliff." As I turned to leave, another banker, the young man who'd first flagged the forged paperwork, stopped me. "I saw the footage," he said, "of what they tried to do to you. Just wanted to say you handled it with grace. Not many people could have walked away the way you did." I smiled but didn't say much because walking away was the hardest part, but it was also the part that saved me. 2 days later, my mom sent a voice message. Not a call, not a letter, just a clipped recording. "I hope the money makes you happy. You always cared more about proving a point than being part of this family." I didn't respond. I archived it, then played something better. A voicemail from years ago from my late father, the last one he ever left me ring of. "I'm proud of the woman you're becoming. No matter what your mom says, you have nothing to prove. Just live. That's enough." His voice cracked near the end, and so did I. I sat on the floor of my new apartment, smaller, simpler, and full of light. And I let myself feel, not anger, not revenge, not victory, release. Because in the end, I didn't burn her house down. I just refused to build mine inside her storm. Sometimes the softest revenge is the silence that follows your peace. Story 3. The retirement celebration of Thomas Gale, April 15th, 6 p.m. At the end of March, the invitation arrived. The envelope had a light cream tint and was addressed in my Aunt Hillary's recognizable round handwriting. The mail included a personal letter from her, but the writing was official and straightforward. I hope everything is going well for you, Tracy. Regarding your father's retirement celebration, I'm writing to you. I am the only member of the family who has maintained contact with you, as you are aware. 15 years is a long period. However, I'm hoping you'll think about coming this one time. I'd want to assist in repairing our relationship with Hillary. As I clutched the letter, my hands shook a little. Since that testimony, Hillary was the only family member who continued to communicate with me, occasionally sending me a letter or email, and no one else had been in touch with me personally. I repeatedly read what she had to say. Do I have to go? If I went, my heart would tremble fiercely. It would undoubtedly hurt. Maybe my dad won't even look at me. Neither Kevin nor my mother would accept me. We were separated by a great distance after 15 years of quiet. I could feel its weight without much imagination. On the other hand, this may be the final chance. He was past the age of retirement, and he was eventually resigning this April. I might never get to see my family again if I didn't attend this celebration. I grabbed a pen and sat down at my desk. I wanted to decline the invitation in a letter, but my hand would not move. Why should I continue to flee? There was nothing wrong with me. Since then, I have been on my own road, having testified for the sake of justice. Hillary's remarks kept repeating in my head. I wish to assist in repairing things. For these 15 years, she had been the sole person between me and the rest of the family. I had to respond to her request. I said to myself, just once more. Again, I make an effort to interact with my family, and even if it was the real end of our connection, I could say that I made an effort. I emailed her a quick response the next day. Thank you for your letter, Aunt Hillary. I'll be at my dad's retirement celebration. But Tracy, please realize that this could be the final time. I let out a long sigh after mailing it. My feelings were mixed up. Fear and determination, anxiety and optimism. But there was no going back once I made up my mind. 15 years have passed. It was the corruption scandal involving bid rigging on public projects, misappropriation of funds, and Daniel Anderson, a longtime friend of my father's and a prominent person in the local construction sector. I was a constitutional law graduate student at the time, and I testified on behalf of the prosecution. I carefully recited only the facts when I testified on behalf of the prosecution. However, Daniel was found guilty as a result of those facts. My father was deeply affected by the repercussions. His reputation suffered greatly as his long-standing relationship with Daniel came under investigation. He had to deal with chilly looks from co-workers, extensive media coverage, and questions from the municipal council. Even resigning was discussed, but he battled to clear his name and was able to hold on to his job. His faith was gradually restored over time, and he continued to work for the firm after reaching retirement age. My father refused to even look at me on the day of the verdict. Why did you betray him? My mother sobbed. Your father's life was wrecked by you. Kevin also spit. You put justice before family, therefore. What has happened to him since then? Do you even know? I didn't communicate with them. No birthday calls, no Christmas cards. The only person left in my life was Hillary. I've heard that my father stayed active in the community even after he reached retirement age. He was popular and regarded as a respectable person. For my part, I worked in my Cambridge office in silence, mentoring students and delving deeply into legal study. I made an effort not to think about my family, but I would always remember them. I took great care in selecting my attire for the celebration: a strand of pearls, a white shirt, and a blue suit. Classy, written without attracting too much notice. I inhaled deeply after glancing at myself in the mirror. I was already planning how I was going to get through the day until I got to the motel. The place was already crowded. People had assembled to honor my father's lengthy career, including the mayor, members of the city council, and local business leaders. I moved stealthily to the rear of the room, avoiding the welcome table. I lacked the bravery to reveal my identity. I wanted to remain unseen, like an unexpected visitor. Kevin saw me at that point. His face became pale when he saw me, even though he had been talking to some buddies. "Tracy?" He approached. His expression was one of disbelief. "Why are you here?" My brother had changed into a totally different person in the 15 years since I last saw him. Aunt Hillary had informed me that Kevin was now employed as a physician. "Kevin," I whispered softly. Our mother suddenly materialized behind him. She froze the once she spotted me. The glass shuddered in her grasp. "Tracy." Her voice trembled. "Why? Who?" The tension was starting to be noticed by others around us. I heard murmurs. "Who is she?" "The daughter of Mr. Gale. It's been years since I last saw her." My mother clutched my arm in panic. "We are unable to communicate here. Come on over here." I followed her and Kevin to a more peaceful area of the space. Fortunately, it appeared that my father had not yet spotted me, even though a few people were watching us. "You were invited by whom?" My mother inquired in a low voice that was a little confused and a little angry. And I said, "Hillary." Kevin's sigh was harsh. "Naturally. Hillary has to interfere every time." "Kevin." After interrupting him, my mother turned back to face me. "Tracy, your father is unaware of your presence. It will be disastrous if he sees you, don't you think?" I smiled wryly as I spoke. Thus, I remain the unwelcome visitor. Her face contorted in discomfort. Her once beautiful face was marked with deep wrinkles from 15 years. The woman I remembered was still there, but she now had a worn-out, weary appearance. "I'm pleading with you, Tracy. Get out of there before your father notices." "It's a big day. I couldn't speak. My mother told me to leave right away after we had been together for 15 years. Aunt Hillary showed up. Tracy." She was standing there with a worried expression on her face as I turned around. "You really did come, Aunt Hillary," she remarked, softly grasping my hand. However, she instantly realized what was going on after glancing at my brother's and mother's heated looks. "Hillary, you brought Tracy here, but why?" In a quiet voice, my mother inquired. "Thomas would, you know." Hillary interrupted her for precisely that reason. 15 years have passed. How long will we continue to live this way? She turned to face me and spoke strongly after that. "You have every right to be here, Tracy, even though your father is obstinate. This is a family get-together." 2. My brother and mother appeared confused. I was no longer family to them. Hillary, however, didn't think so. And I was aware that my father would probably immediately throw me out if he caught me. I was an unexpected visitor, attempting to take a deep breath. Nevertheless, I was happy to see my family once more, even though I wasn't welcomed. "What's all this commotion then?" We pivoted. My father was standing there. When his eyes locked with mine, his face froze. "Tracy." His voice was tight with repressed rage and low. "Thomas, why are you here?" Hillary moved forward. She was invited. "Is Tracy your daughter?" "Daughter?" His sneer was nasty. "I don't have a daughter. This family was deceived by that individual." I let out a gasp. My father's first comments in 15 years were as ruthless and icy as a sword. "Dad," with a quivering voice, I spoke. "Keep your mouth shut. You are here for no purpose." I was silenced when my father held out a hand. Everybody in the room looked at us. The rising murmurs were audible to me. A surge of guilt and grief weighed heavily on my chest, almost choking me. "Thomas, you can't talk to her like that." Hillary objected as well. My father yelled, "Hillary, don't get involved." She is not related. I turned to go. There was no way I could remain any longer. My father then stated something that caught me off guard. "All right, At least remain for my speech later since you're here. It will serve as a suitable lesson in embarrassment." Startled, I turned to face him. He planned to let me remain, if only to publicly humiliate me, when I had assumed he would toss me out right away. There was just disdain in his eyes. As if I didn't exist, he turned away without saying anything further and went back to talking to the other visitors. I couldn't understand. I anticipated conflict and rage. But more than yelling ever could, this calculating disregard and icy indifference unnerved me. "Are you all right?" Hillary then spoke softly in a whisper. "I believe so. However, why didn't he force me to go?" I felt a sinking sensation in my chest. He has a plan. He won't just ignore it. My father took the microphone shortly after. It was his turn to speak. I appreciate everyone's attendance today. With ease and power, his voice reverberated across the hall. He talked about his 42 years of service, including the challenges and successes, and thanked his family and coworkers for their unwavering support. I believed I saw him look at me when he used the term family. However, he swiftly averted his gaze. My son Kevin, who practices medicine in our town and has aided countless people, is someone I'm particularly proud of. And he was obviously staring at me. My heart started pounding. Was he going to give me a nod? I straightened my posture and awaited my father's words, and the shame of our family is here with us now. A swarm of murmurs swept through the space. Dozens of eyes shifted in my direction. My face was emptied of blood. The Morrison family name has been tarnished by one of us. Tracy is that individual. She is nothing like the daughter I claim her to be. She is an embarrassment and a failure. I was having trouble staying upright. His remarks were sharp as blades. Failure. The phrase kept repeating in my head. Our family is ashamed of this individual. She destroyed her father's life and deceived us. I'm very sorry we have to have someone like her in our midst. There was silence in the room. I sensed their looks. Disgust, pity, curiosity. Trapped in the maelstrom of judgment, I stood there. My father really felt this way. At first, he appeared unconcerned. Perhaps, however, that was all part of his scheme. And now he had made me seem bad in front of everyone. As though I had already been erased, he carried on with his remarks as like nothing had occurred. And gradually, the audience turned its focus back to his well-crafted remarks and away from me. Silently, I turned and headed for the door. There was no point in remaining. It was evident from his statements that our relationship could not be saved. However, I heard someone cry out to me just before I got to the doors. My father's business president, Franklin, was there. He had always been friendly to me and had known me when I was a young child. "Tracy, have you got a moment?" I gave a little nod. He guided me to a peaceful area of the corridor. "I heard what your dad had to say." He was careful with his word choice. "However, I am aware of your true nature. Your father might not. However, I do." Confused, I scowled. What was he discussing? "I take it that you are a Harvard professor? Constitutional law?" Stunned, I gazed at him. How was he aware that my son was enrolled in law school? "He frequently mentions you." "Well, Professor Teagle, you're famous." I requested him to show me a photo after recognizing the name. I realized right away that I couldn't speak. I never thought anyone in this tiny town would actually recognize me. "Now why don't you speak the truth?" Frank held my arm tenderly while he talked. "Your father should be aware of your true identity. You don't need to wait till tomorrow. Tracy, you've endured enough suffering for 15 years, yet I hesitated. You no longer have to bear this miscommunication." I took a big breath after hearing his comments, which gave me the boost I needed. Perhaps it was time to come out of hiding. My father had rejected me, and my family had left me. I didn't have to minimize my value, though. I had spent the previous 15 years working non-stop. I looked back toward the corridor. My father stood with everyone around him, still grinning and soaking in the praise. I plucked up all my bravery and started to approach him. "Dad." My voice reverberated throughout the corridor. His grin dimmed. Everyone around us stopped talking. "Are you still present?" "I assumed you were gone." "Cold," he said. "You mentioned me?" With a quivering voice, I spoke. "I was considered a failure by you." "Yes, exactly. You are this family's embarrassment." Without hesitation, he said. "Once more," the crowd whispered. People started to swarm around us. Frank moved forward to stand next to me. Calm but forceful, he said, "Thomas, the truth is, you have no idea who your daughter is." "Do you?" "Frank, what are you talking about?" My dad frowned. "Your daughter teaches at Harvard University as a professor. She is a nationally renowned constitutional law specialist." The hall was filled with a startled hush. My dad's face became white. My mom gave a little gasp. My father murmured, "That's absurd. This youngster cannot possibly be a Harvard professor. You must be wrong." Frank turned to face me and replied, "I'm not mistaken. Would you show him, Tracy?" I took out my business card, which had a clear print, from my purse. Harvard University constitutional law professor, Dr. Tracy Gale. My father took it from me. He accepted it with a trembling hand. "This," he continued, "this must be fake," but his voice was no longer convincing. My phone came out, and I went to the Harvard University website. It showed my faculty profile, credentials, biography, and photo. "Still don't you trust me?" Quietly, I asked. "I am a Harvard constitutional law professor. Across the nation, legal schools employ my research." My father, however, obstinately shook his head. He argued that this was a fabrication. A phony website may be created by anybody. A business card may be printed by anyone. From the audience, more whispers. The visitors began to feel confused and uneasy. Frank took another step forward. "What are you saying, Thomas? Are you certain that this is a fake?" "It is, of course." My dad's voice came up. "She could never be a professor at Harvard. You're attempting to pull a prank on me, but I'm not going to fall for it." Guests looked at each other doubtfully. The scenario that was developing obviously unnerved them. Frank remained unflinching. "Thomas, your refusal to accept this is the only reason you are unable to do so. However, this is the reality. Your daughter is a professor at Harvard. Quit talking." My dad let out a shout. "You dare not tell me a lie." Then a young man came forward from the rear of the room. It was the son of Frank. "Let me talk, Dad." "She's my professor," he added. "No error exists." My dad's face lost all of its color. I spoke quietly while glancing at him. "Why do you find it so difficult to acknowledge my success?" Despite his lack of words, I could see the maelstrom of emotions churning beneath the surface of his eyes. With a voice that shook, "That can't be," remarked my father. I moved forward a step. "Do you think the evidence is phony? Does the truth frighten you?" His face twisted. "If you've truly developed into such a successful person, what if so? It implies that I was mistaken. It indicates that my decision to leave you during that trial was a mistake." The hush in the room grew even more profound. The reality that he had concealed from himself was exposed by his confession. "When you testified 15 years ago, my main concern was defending my own viewpoint. I didn't want to think you were acting morally, because if I did..." His voice broke. "In that case, I would have to acknowledge that I was the type of parent who discarded his daughter in order to preserve myself. I so persuaded myself that you were a failure and that you were mistaken. I may then continue to act like the victim." My mom gave a little gasp. Kevin's expression was one of surprise as he stood still. "You will have achieved success if I acknowledge that you are a Harvard professor? What does it make me then? A stupid dad who attempted to ruin his daughter's future?" Silently, I listened. My father was now acknowledging the reality that had been hidden deep within of him. "I wanted you to fail. I could say I was correct if your life ended up being horrible. That my selfishness was justified, that I had made the right choice." Frank's tone was heard. "Thomas Grave, you feared she would succeed." "Yes, exactly. I was terrified that if Tracy was successful, everyone would see how ugly I am. I thus want her failure. When I labeled you a failure, he looked up at me. Not because I thought you were, the reason is that I needed you to be, to get away from my own guilt. Then, as though his legs were giving out, he fell into a chair. What did I do? The crowd started to realize the seriousness of what had just transpired as the truth finally set in. From the opposite side of the room, my mother hurried over. "Does it actually happen, Tracy? You teach at Harvard as a professor?" "Yes," I replied softly. "Mom." Kevin moved to face Tracy. "We were unaware. To be honest, we had no idea. Didn't you attempt to find out?" I answered, meeting his gaze directly. "You all pretended that I didn't exist for 15 years. What I was doing didn't matter to you. You didn't even inquire. Everyone," Frank turned to them, "one of the nation's top constitutional academics is Tracy. Significant court decisions have been impacted by her work. She has been accomplishing amazing things, but you were unaware of them." My father glanced up at last. "Tracy, I apologize. Really? Is a mere apology sufficient in your opinion? I got up gradually for 15 years. This family didn't see me. How agonizing was it, do you know?" I held up my hand to stop my mother from taking a step in my direction. "I'm not going to forgive everything just yet. I require time." Frank's voice was soft. "I know how you feel, Tracy. Families, however, are not perfect. What they take away from them is what counts." I inhaled deeply. There was a thick quiet in the room. Nobody spoke. Then I said, "Dad, I didn't live my life to please you. However, you must at least be aware of the reality. I'm not a failure." After saying that, I turned and left. As I went outdoors, the night air kissed my cheeks. There was a profound melancholy mixed with a sense of liberation. I was still unsure if my family's relationship would ever be restored. I had been back in Cambridge for a week. My relatives called and emailed me every single day. I first disregarded them, but as time went on, I saw that their communications started to take on a different tone. Tracy, my dad, was the first to apologize. "I sincerely apologize for the incident that occurred the other day. I painted you as the bad guy for years in order to keep myself safe. I had no idea how much you had achieved, and my own presumptions caused me to damage you. I'm sincerely sorry for what I have done." My mother then made contact. "This is Mom, Tracy. I was unaware that you were a Harvard professor. We never even made an effort to learn what your life had devolved into. I now realize how much suffering you must have endured throughout the years. I'm so sorry. I even received a rare letter from Kevin, Tracy. As a doctor, I have seen a lot of patients, but I have never once made an effort to comprehend my own family. We blamed you even though you did the right thing. I was unable to see your bravery for what it was. I apologize." I didn't immediately respond, though. I was unable to determine if their apologies were a sincere expression of sorrow or whether they were only a reaction to the shock of learning of my accomplishment. I wrote a brief response a week later. "You have apologized to me. Even if I haven't harbored anger for the past 15 years, I can't go back in time to the way things were. I want us to think about if we can create a new form of partnership. I need some space for now. Tracy." My family's connection temporarily ceased after I sent the message. I was relieved and, surprisingly, a little lonely. A month or so later, Tracy received a call from Aunt Hillary. "How are you?" "I'm doing okay." "Hillary, too. I appreciate you checking in. In fact, I wanted to discuss your family with you." She spoke carefully. "Kevin, your mother, and your father. All of them have begun attending therapy." I was taken aback. "Therapy?" "Indeed." They had a lengthy conversation after that evening. At last, they understood how much they had wounded you. They've made the decision to get professional assistance because they want to change. "Hillary, Aunt, is that accurate?" "Yes, it is." The counselor explained to them how agonizing it must have been to be rejected for so long by your own family. Every time I heard Thomas cry during a session, a range of conflicting feelings surged in my chest. It was hard for me to picture my dad crying. However, they are not immediately requesting your forgiveness. They simply want to get back in touch on your terms, she continued. Perhaps you could start with baby steps if you're willing. I pondered for a while after I hung up if I could meet them halfway, if they were genuinely attempting to change. Try at least. I wrote a brief email to my mother 2 months later. I've heard that you're attending counseling, Mom. That seems like a wise move. Please give me more time. I'm still processing my own emotions. Tracy. The following day, she responded. Tracy, I appreciate you writing. We won't hurry you. We genuinely wish to make a change. I hope we can reunite as a true family one day. We then started sending each other brief texts, roughly once a month. My dad emailed me updates about his job. My mom told me tidbits of her everyday life. Kevin wrote about his medical experiences. There was no longer any coldness or animosity, but the material was still very superficial. They were really trying, and I could tell. I called the family for the first time 2 months later. Tracy was picked up by my mother. Her voice became joyful. Mom, how are you? I'm doing all okay. My perspective has improved as a result of counseling. How foolish we were to treat you in that manner. Our conversation lasted about an hour. She informed me about their therapy sessions and how much my father and Kevin had learned to think about what they had done. Someday, I hope, we can all get together and have a meaningful conversation. I said, Really? Her voice faltered. Are you saying that you'll pardon us? I'd like to attempt restoring trust, but not quite yet. Gradually. While I was still working at the university 6 months later, I made a crucial choice. I started a new initiative, a program to help youngsters from disadvantaged backgrounds. It was a program created to provide mentorship and scholarships to students who wanted to go to law school but had to give up their aspirations because of financial difficulties. Professor Susan, one of my colleagues, glowed when I brought up the concept. That's amazing. However, why this suddenly? I hesitated before responding, because I understand what it's like to feel totally alone and misunderstood. Additionally, I want to help children who are in that similar situation. Through this endeavor, your story is turning into someone else's strength. I got to know a lot of young individuals. Some were bearing the burden of suffering from family that were unable or unwilling to comprehend them. I told them that how other people see them doesn't determine their value. I'm still thinking about my own family now. Although I can appreciate their attempt to improve, I still can't forgive them completely. How will the connection develop in the future? I'm not sure yet. However, I no longer harbor resentment or anger. Time does heal sometimes. I continue to work with my pupils in my office every day while keeping that in mind.